What was the controversy that ultimately led to Graham Hancock and Keanu Reeves shutting down filming for Ancient Apocalypse Season 2 for Netflix here at Chaco Canyon? There's so many amazing things to see here, like the great Kiva here at Chetro, Ketl. We actually have a whole series about Chaco Canyon. We're interviewing a local archaeologist, several other local experts, and we spent days out here filming. So we can't wait to share all of that with you. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. But again, a lot of people don't realize that Graham Hancock and Keanu Reeves, again from Netflix's Ancient Apocalypse Season 2, they were filming out here for at least 4 days, and they were going to come back, and then they abruptly stopped. They did not come back out here to film.
The only thing that's certain is that this is a really big deal.
This wall right here was 5 stories at least.
I think a lot of the answers are here.
Nobody even knows this is here.
They have evidence, and they dug down and they found proof.
Our culture now, with all of our technology and advancements, we could not replicate this.
Join us as we look for the truth of what was all of this for? Why did they build these? Now, if you haven't heard of Ancient Apocalypse, the series on Netflix, it's basically about exploring fringe and alternative archaeological theories on ancient civilizations. There's new information, new data being revealed all the time, and Graham Hancock likes to expose that, and not everybody likes that, which we're gonna get into here in some detail. But Cherie and I are both fans. We loved season 1 on Netflix, and we're excited to watch season 2. And whether you agree or disagree with the theories, I think it is a very interesting show. So who are Graham Hancock and Keanu Reeves? Well, I would imagine more people have heard of Keanu Reeves than Graham Hancock. Keanu Reeves, maybe most famously known as an actor in the hit movie series The Matrix, which I personally really enjoyed. And Graham Hancock is a former journalist from Britain. He took a real interest in uncovering lost ancient civilizations that date back a lot farther than typical archaeological history has accepted. He's put out a lot of different theories, and people have called him a quack, a pseudoscientist, and he is not a formally trained archaeologist, but he is exposing various theories and also the new evidence that is coming out. And again, whether you agree or disagree with him, I think the show and some of the evidence presented is compelling. Now, whether you agree with Graham Hancock's theories or not, I want to back up to what is archaeology? What is science? And I'm not an archaeologist. We're just out here learning. Cherie and I are just amateurs that are curious about the truth. And I thought that's kind of what archaeology and science is all about. It's about finding the truth. You know, if you think there's reasons we need to totally ignore Graham Hancock and whatever, post them down below in the comments. Or if you're a big supporter and you love his work, then put that down below in the comments as well. But just speaking again for a science or an archaeological standpoint, isn't that the search for truth? And isn't history and science always evolving? We're making new discoveries all the time. And what it was once considered a fringe theory or pseudoscience gets accepted. There are many, many fringe theories, like the theory of continental drift was a fringe theory, but now it's the accepted theory on how our continents move around the planet. Back in grade school, I was taught that Columbus discovered America, and that's not true. So they've tweaked or are rewriting the history books. Or the Big Bang Theory for the formation of the universe. That was once just considered a crazy idea, but that is the accepted way right now of how our universe formed. And I could go on and on and on of theories from 20, 30, 50 years ago that were just considered crazy fringe theories, but they've been proven out. My thing, whether you agree or disagree with Graham Hancock, I would say keep an open mind. One of the things that one of my mentors taught me was something called beginner's mind. That if you consider yourself an expert, you kind of close yourself off to new ideas. Like you've learned everything there is about a subject and you just kind of like decide that's all there is. And that's not beginner's mind, that's a closed mind. So I really like hearing from all kinds of people on their theories here, and not everybody agrees with the theories here at Chaco Canyon. But I think it's really interesting to hear the theories and see the evidence, make our own decisions, keep an open mind, because we actually don't have to decide right now if anything we present or what Graham Hancock and Keanu Reeves, again, Ancient Apocalypse Season 2. And this is not just an amateur's opinion. Here's Tori with her take on the scientific and the archaeological scientific methods.
And so this belief, which is always very incorrect and very dangerous, develops that things have always been this way.
Right, and they haven't.
And that's why it's necessary to have things studied and evaluated by an outsider, because as an insider, you can't separate from it the way that you need to be able to actually compare things and learn things and make sense of what's going on. And when you do a scientific pursuit, that's supposed to be an understanding. That's part of our training as scientists, is that everything can be reevaluated. Nothing is ever absolutely solved, because new technology gives you new ways to look at things that you didn't have before. And so there should always be learning. There should always be developments taking place. And while you can sometimes feel very confident in saying, it looks like this is how it worked, what we're really saying is, it looks like this is how it worked, and this is what we have evidence to support or not to support right now, using what's available right now. But that could change at some point in the future if there were better methods or more accurate analyses.
Always evolving.
Yeah.
Is that fully recognized throughout archaeologists, that they're willing to change like that? Or we've just heard that some people like to try to lock in their understanding of something and not change?
Well, one of the greatest problems in all forms of scientific research is that when you put a lot of time and effort into figuring something out, it makes you very tied to it emotionally. We all know, we are all trained, you cannot get a degree in a scientific endeavor without understanding that the whole purpose is to constantly reevaluate and reanalyze things. But the reality is that once we figure something out, we want everybody to pay attention to us and to say, oh, that was such a great idea, and now we don't have to worry about that because it's all figured out. And so there's a conflict inherently between the way that we know we're supposed to be doing science and the way that we want it to work, which is that we figured it out and we should get the credit and we should be famous for that forever now. Yeah, that's a problem not just in archaeology but in every kind of science.
Okay.
And it makes it
sense.
extremely threatening and extremely frustrating to ever want to publish new materials, because very often, instead of people going, oh, this is an interesting way to look at it, and maybe we should give it some consideration, the overwhelming majority of responses are, no, you're wrong, it can't be that way, and by the way, I figured this out 35 years ago, and you shouldn't even be trying to redo it.
Just shuts it down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dismisses it. Yeah. That's unfortunate.
It is, and it makes it so that
Your work is
people
more
don't
challenging.
want to publish ideas, and they don't want to present new interpretations, not because they're afraid of a little bit of helpful criticism, but because that's not helpful. That's not the way that you're supposed to, respond to somebody reevaluating your ideas. That becomes too emotional.
That's too bad, because it kind of stifles that new learning, that new exploration.
Yeah. Some ego involved in that.
I think for a lot of people, they end up teaching at universities, and that makes them feel like they're an authority, and it makes them feel like they know everything.
Yeah.
And a lot of times people do that until they get tenured, and then they just stay until they die. And so it goes on for a long, it's not generational, it goes on for a much, much longer period of time, because the turnover is very slow for new people to get into the university system and to begin teaching classes themselves and stuff, because there's so many people who are still there who are like in their 80s, or some of them are very good professors. I had a lot of them, but they also tended to be very certain about things that they had figured out 50 years ago when they were young, and still leaning on those ideas, and sometimes not very open to other ways of looking at things.
Yeah.
I guess if they're not in the field, then they're not really necessarily experiencing anything new.
Right. You get very isolated, I guess, when you are teaching and just working in a lab And sometimes it's easy for people to forget that there's a whole world out there where things might be happening.
And you probably hear a lot of different theories.
Oh, yeah.
Of different,
Yeah.
But I know, but there's probably millions of theories
Well,
around.
there are, even amongst researchers. You know, you can, unfortunately, that's one of the consequences of studying groups that don't have writing, is that you can study the same elements of data, and your own training and your own experiences and background can make you interpret that data in a very different way than someone else. And so you do have, even amongst researchers, some very, very different opinions about how Chaco worked and what was really happening here and what the social organization was like. Nobody actually knows. We can say, you know, it doesn't look like this is supported, or it doesn't look like this is supported. But that doesn't mean that the whole perspective is wrong, or the whole interpretation. Just maybe certain parts are right and certain parts are wrong for all of us. We just don't know which ones. So that makes it interesting. It means that there's still a lot to learn, but it also makes it very frustrating for certain types of people, because there are people who like to ask questions and there are people who like to have answers. And usually those people are not the same people.
Right. That's well said.
Yeah.
So Chaco Canyon is in New Mexico, and just a few hundred miles from here in White Sands National Monument. And this is a recent discovery. Just a few years ago, they discovered human footprints that date back 21,000 to 23,000 years old. This is many thousands of years older than the first humans were thought to have been here in America. And at first, those researchers got a lot of blowback, but it is being accepted now that this was actually proof that, along with these footprints, they had fossilized footprints of mammoths as well. And it wasn't believed before that we coexisted at the same time the mammoths were around. This new evidence goes against the Clovis first model that the first humans that came across the Bering Land Bridge around 13,000 years ago. So it adds like another 10,000 years on that, and it predates the Vikings. Now, not everybody is excited about these new discoveries. The Native Americans, the indigenous people here, actually, their origination story is that they were here first. They were the first humans here, and they take strong offense at the idea that there were earlier humans here in the Americas. We respect their religious beliefs, but a lot of religious beliefs are not based on science or factual evidence. And just because we disagree with, you know, some new information, it goes against our religion or our beliefs. I believe if we're in search of the truth, and I think most people want to know the truth, then we have to let that bear out. Again, we respect the Native Americans' viewpoint, and you can have a spiritual belief that is different from what bears out in the science. I'm kind of getting to why they're so against Graham Hancock filming here at Chaco and other sites like the Grand Canyon for Ancient Apocalypse Season 2. And they actually didn't even film at the Grand Canyon at all. But just because you disagree with what the findings are doesn't mean you should make up stories about somebody. I'm not even going to repeat some of the things that I've heard about Graham Hancock. They have basically, and I say they, which could be mainstream archaeologists, indigenous people, academics, they have made Graham Hancock out to be like this bad guy and have said horrible things about him. But again, if you remember, a lot of fringe theorists that came up with theories that were proven out were also extremely ridiculed. And I think going back in history, I think some of these people were put to death for having some of these theories. So that is just kind of the cycle. So again, come from beginner's mind when you look at new information. We don't have to make personal attacks against people. We're getting there. Why Ancient Apocalypse Season 2, they stopped filming here because of the heat from the indigenous tribes. They put permits in to film here at Chaco. They filmed here for 4 days, and they were going to come back, and they had the permits for that, but they pulled the plug at the last minute. They had permits at Grand Canyon National Park in Arizona, and they never started filming there. The permits were held up a little bit by the National Park Service, but it even came down from Washington, Upper High Management National Park Service, that you have to approve these permits, that we can't not approve it. Probably freedom of speech, freedom of information, something like that. Now, as reported in the Guardian newspaper, numerous tribes lodged strenuous complaints against Graham Hancock and the government for allowing them to film. It did hold up the permit, but they were actually issued. So Ancient Apocalypse could have done all of the filming that they wanted to. Some speculate that they did want to respect the indigenous people's beliefs and just figured they would film in other parts of the Americas like Peru and Brazil. I believe that it is still going to be covered in part of the series, since they did film at least 4 days here at Chaco Canyon. Now, for Cherie and I, this is an exciting time with so much new evidence coming out about ancient cultures and how people first got here, and the technology that we're uncovering is just mind-blowing here. So again, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Comment down below, are you going to be watching Ancient Apocalypse Season 2? Let us know, and we look forward to you joining us as we explore in depth, in detail here, all of the great things here at Chaco Canyon. And for our next video, you can click right here.
There's lots of different interpretations, and any one of them might be right or wrong or part.
You just keep yourself open to what unfolds.
The only thing that's certain is that this is a really big deal.